Welcome back. Today I get this transition pan welded in place, cleaned up. It's looking great. If you want to see how I got to this point, a previous video on the transition pan showed all the prep work and everything to get to this point. And if you go back further, I've got tons of videos on all the metal work so far. Let's get started. Okay, I have finished prepping all the surfaces, getting my flanges straight on the wheel wells, both sides. Got some weld-through primer on those as well. Added a couple of additional holes beyond the bump stop. You can see those back there. And I'm gonna similarly weld through on that side of the wheelhouse to the transition pan. There was essentially nothing from here to here really holding it. I showed in the other video how it was flopping all around, so that should help tie things together a little better. Wheelhouse to transition pan. Yeah, really excited about that. We are finally, even those landing spots cleaned up, got weld through primer and the underside of those flanges. We're ready to put this thing in. What I did, I've got a level back there. What I've been doing, I don't know if you can see, I've got a laser level at the front of the car. If you recall, I knew we had a slight twist in this car when you measured the front versus the back. Up until now, I've been keeping things exactly where they were. Now that I have transition pan floor, basically everything that keeps each side of the car kind of independent or tied together is removed. I'm taking this opportunity and measuring, and relative to the front of the car, I was maybe an 1/8 inch out of level. That's that twist that we had. I just kind of used my jack with a hockey puck and brought it back up to where everything was level. Back of the car, here at the leaf spring mounts, frame rail right there, and then towards the front of the car on the floor supports and frame rails. And right to left, this car is less than a 1/16 of an inch. I think on the whole, probably closer to 1/32 of an inch. And yeah, I'm really excited about that. Really glad I got that done. I feel confident now putting the new metal back in and adding the rigidity back. Yeah, I don't know why I'm still talking and not working. Let's get to it. I should also mention that I had taken a measurement and looked at the spec. My car was spread a little bit further before I cut anything out, so compared to the spec. So I went ahead and I have a ratchet strap. There's not a ton of tension on there, but enough to just kind of pull it in to where it will be for spec. And I'll probably, obviously I'll have to undo that to fit the floor back in, but once the floor's in the future, I'm gonna ratchet that back up. I just want everything kind of pulled to where it should be as I attach the transition pan. Okay, I'm fitting everything in place for the last time before welding. Everything is looking like it's lining up great. I think what I'm going to do, just because the surface area is so large and I have a lot of clamps on here, but still, there are some spots that I can't clamp well. What I'm going to do is probably take some self-tapping screws at a couple of points. But I think I'm going to start at the back because the corners here are what's well defined, and kind of weld up the sides on both sides. And then once that's secure and, cooled off and secure, I said secure twice, then I'm going to continue to move my way forward so that any slop, if I start at the front and back and I have a bow, then I can't get that out of there. This will help it lay down, and then do this row, press everything down and make sure I've got that row flat, then move forward and do that row. And just so everything is flush up against that lower cross member, and then probably do the wheel houses last. I think that's going to help make everything lay flat. If I do the wheel houses first, then that kind of defines that arc, and I might have a gap along the frame rails and backs, and I don't want that. I want everything as flush as possible. The challenge of my own making, obviously, and always, is going to be where I made the slit there. So I think what I'm going to do, same thing as this side and work back to front. But once I get to here, I'm going to probably clamp, if I can get a clamp or a self-tapping screw there and make sure that's flush. And that'll define the width, the overlap that we saw last video. That will basically set it in place and get everything where it needs to. If I have to, I will get a 2x4 or something to just basically brace across and push this wheelhouse out the last, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch or so. And as I mentioned last video, it appears that the rear frame rails are galvanized. And when you weld on galvanized, that releases some pretty nasty stuff you don't want to breathe. So I'm going to go full cartridge respirator underneath my welding mask. Okay, I got the rears welded up against these back panels. There were a few that had some contamination, and I know I'm going to have to grind back and, sorry, I hope if I pointed, grind back and retouch up some of them. But for the most part, that's in place and solid, got attached to the L brackets here. And then, as I said before, I'm going to move my way forward. I do have some self-tapping screws every so often where it was kind of lifted up a little bit. I'm going to start, at least in the back, I'm going to start in the middle and work my way out and make sure it's flat against that cross member as I go outwards. So any, I don't know, any slack, if you will, gets pushed towards the edges. Shouldn't make a big difference, but why not? And then once I get the back row welded in, I'll start down the frame rails. From here on out, I'm full respirator, as I mentioned before, and door cracked open, just so we get the airflow going on. Yeah, let's get to it. Okay, it is welded in finally. Got pretty good welds. There's a few where I had contamination. I don't know if I just didn't clean up back there well enough, but had some sputtering, and I'm gonna, well, once I grind everything down, I gotta go back over anyway and see everywhere I missed, and I'll probably redo one or two. But guys, I am thrilled. It is in. It feels, I mean, the car immediately feels more solid, which isn't super surprising, but yeah, I am so excited. And I stitched up my, yeah, you get to see up close all my gross welds, but I stitched up the seam that I had there, got it fitted nicely. I'm so excited. I'm gonna go ahead and keep cleaning this up, and hopefully soon it's gonna look at least presentable. So I know that you love watching it as much as I love doing it. So here I am just grinding down about 10,000 welds. I'm alternating between a grinding disc on my angle grinder and a flap sand disc with my air tool. This is always a tedious process, but I've got some Bluetooth safety earmuffs, so I can just kind of zone out, get to grinding and listen to tunes. So as I clean up welds, I'm making note of any spots I have to go back if I had pinholes or anything. Okay, I finally have the most of this transition pan in. I went and cleaned up all my welds going along the frame rail, or both frame rails for that matter, and then straightened up kind of the back where the trunk panel meets up to the transition pan, and filled in any pinholes. Any remaining divots or pinholes, I'm probably just going to cover with the seam sealer when I go around and do it. The way I welded it, it is what's underneath is the frame rail, so it's not like it's a hole opening into the bottom. I went ahead and as I was welding, I ran out of welding gas, or at least I'm extremely low. So I kind of stopped here. I still need to weld up this other side, but I'm not going to bore you with that. It's basically just like the other side, the passenger side that you already saw. This is it, or don't look over there. This is what it's going to look like when it's all done. I'm thrilled. It is solid. I'm so happy, guys. What I'm going to do kind of next is probably locate and attach the mounts. I still do need to fill in these holes for the old seatbelt mounts or for the other year seatbelt mounts. And it's worth mentioning, I am obviously doing a floor here. The floor is supposed to tuck underneath, so kind of in between the wheelhouse and this. So I actually didn't weld all the way down. Once I get the floor in place and everything squared away there, then I'll go ahead and weld it up. Okay, if you're still with me, thank you so much for watching. It is continuing to move along. We're making great progress, and next big thing is we tackle the floor.